Hello and welcome to The Last Word. Now that all the 2G accused have been released on bail, where does the case stand? Are convictions likely? Could there be further charges? And might the list of accused grow? That's with the man who first exposed the 2G scam, Subramanian Swamy, the Vice Chairman of the Law Commission, KTS Tulsi, one of the lead defense lawyers, Majid Memon, and the Deputy Editor of The Hindu, Shalini Singh. Subramanian Swamy, although all the 2G accused are now out on bail, does the Supreme Court judgment of January this year cancelling 122 licenses mean that eventually some or maybe even many of the accused will be found guilty? Or is that a premature conclusion?
Well, I think from what I have an appreciation of the evidence, all the accused will be found guilty, and probably by the end of the year.
Do you really mean all bar none?
Bar none.
Mr. Memon, as one of the lead defense lawyers, how strongly do you disagree?
Well, I must appreciate the efforts that Mr. Subramanian Swamy is singularly taking in this matter for whatever reasons, and he has been heard often saying that the main offenders are still out, and therefore these people who are now facing the trial are only small fries.
You're deliciously not answering my question. You're being diplomatic instead.
If he's saying so, just give me half a minute more. If he's saying so, Mr. Swamy will have to agree with me. That would mean that the quest for truth in this trial is only the quest for half-truth. Mr. Swamy, do you agree with me?
Well, hang on a second. Before we make this a trade-off between you and Mr. Swamy, and I will give Mr. Swamy a chance to answer that rhetorical question, but first answer my question.
Yes, my answer
to that is... Do you agree that all the accused will be found guilty?
My answer to this is that probably exactly converse of it, that probably all the accused may be found not guilty, and certainly most of them.
All right, very quickly, Mr. Swamy, because I don't want to get deflected for long. Do you want to answer that question, that your quest for truth is actually a quest for half-truth?
Well, Memon's point is well taken, that the number of accused here are not all the accused. In fact, the bigger fish are still outside, but I am making efforts to see that they also join with the other accused.
All right, I'll come to what you call the bigger fish in a moment's time, but let's for now concentrate on the pond and the fish as they are. Mr. Tulsi, last night, A. Raja hosted a dinner to celebrate his release on bail. It's led some people to speculate that this suggests that the case against him is either being diluted, Jayalalitha said that in particular, or that it might fade away. Is that a realistic fear, or is it an exaggerated one?
You see, it's one of those cases which can't be said to be an open and shut case, despite Herculean efforts made by Dr. Swamy. What I will say is that a trial goes through a lot of ups and downs, and this is just the beginning of the trial. How it will shape in the future, what further materials the CBI, if any, will come up with, but at the moment, the case really is very doubtful.
Okay, but that's another matter. But you're also saying, are you not, by implication, that fears that Mr. Raja celebrating last night suggests the case against him is being diluted? Those are unrealistic fears. Very quickly, you are saying that, aren't you?
I don't know how this how anybody can dilute the case. It will
answer that.
The trial is a quest for determination or truth.
Okay.
So there's no question or dilution. The court is going to go right into the heart of the matter, but the heart of the matter here may turn out to be very, very slippery.
Well, a slippery heart. Very quickly, you wanted to come in.
What I was wanting to say, that grant of bail or refusal of bail has nothing to do with the ultimate result in the trial. The experience tells us, the record tells us, many people who are denied bail are found not guilty. Many people who are granted bail are found guilty.
All right,
so therefore, that's not the dilution. This statement is made by an immature mind who would not probably know what is our criminal jurisprudence.
I'm sure Ms. Jayalalitha is hearing you and will have heard you say that hers is an immature mind. Shalini Singh, Whilst releasing Raja on bail, the special court judge expressed satisfaction with the progress of the trial. In fact, his exact words were, and I'm going to quote, "A reasonably good amount of work has been done." As someone who's been closely following this case, would you agree?
Well, I'd like to just place what I'm saying in the context of the Supreme Court judgment, which has established illegality and loss to the exchequer. Once you establish that, that means that there has to be a corresponding gain. Is that fairly apparent? But it is not up to the media or to the courts to establish bribery. That is the CBI's job. Now, the CBI's charge sheet.
But that's another matter. What about the point made by the judge that reasonably good amount of work has been done? Do you accept that the case is making satisfactory progress?
Well, not in terms of what the CBI has been delivering, and that's the point that I want to make. And eventually, when it comes to bribery, corruption, money trails, conclusive evidence, it's the CBI's job to do that.
So in other words, the judge is wrong when he says that a good amount of work has been done, because you're pointing out to me the CBI is not doing as much as it should be doing.
Absolutely.
So you disagree with the judge?
I mean, I wouldn't like to actually, give an opinion about what the judge in his wisdom has said. He has access to a lot more information.
But your opinion doesn't concur with the judge's opinion?
Going by the record, going by the evidence at hand, going by the CBI's performance, well, there's a lot to be said about that.
Mr. Subramanian Swamy, let's broaden our discussion. The CBI has talked of the possibility of filing further charges against Mr. Raja. Do you expect this to happen, or do you think this was just a tactic that they used in court, hoping that it would be efficacious in Mr. Raja being denied bail? Which do you think it is?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that Section 13, under which most of these cases have been framed, the charges have been framed, that has three parts, and one part doesn't require proving bribery or criminal intent, and that's part 3. It's part 1, part 2, and the other sections like 9, 11, which require this bribery charge to be made. So as far as conviction is concerned, after the cancellation of the license, section 13 bracket 1 bracket D part 3, all the accused will be found guilty on that.
Okay, but that's a different issue, and that's a fair point you make. But come back to my point. Do you accept that further charges could be filed, or was that simply a ploy being used by the CBI to try and have Mr. Raja denied bail? Which is it?
I don't think it's a ploy. It's a fact. The only point on which I would agree with Shalini Singh is that there are aspects of the case where the CBI is quite chicken and has not been forthcoming.
Okay, so then in other words, you're also saying by implication that the CBI ceases to be, to use your lovely phrase, chicken, they will file further charges. Mr. Memon, would you agree?
That's right, they will.
Okay, you concur. Would you agree, Mr. Memon, that fresh charges against the accused is a possibility that cannot be ruled out?
You see, if you are adding charges and making the facts of the case more complicated, it becomes difficult for you to establish them in the court of law.
In other words, you're suggesting it would not be wise to make it more complicated.
Number 2, Mr. Swamy has now been saying that CBI, concurring with what Shalini said, that CBI has not been doing its job satisfactorily. Now, what does it mean? It means that CBI is heading to a failure. And if CBI is heading to a failure, the result is acquittal of the accused.
Absolutely.
And therefore,
but I take your point. Absolutely. Logically, the point you're making follows. But I'll bring you back in a moment's time, Mr. Swamy. Mr. Swamy, I'll bring you in a moment's time. Let me just finish my own line of questioning first. The point you made about further charges is that it would complicate the matter so substantially that the CBI would find it very difficult to then prosecute and pursue the case. Therefore, you're suggesting that in the CBI's own interest, it would not be wise to bring further charges and complicate the matter.
That's the principle, governing a criminal inquiry and investigation and criminal trial. Okay. Now, at this juncture, if you add a few new charges, you would enable the accused persons to go back to the first prosecution witness and recall. There will be no end to this.
All right, and so it wouldn't be wise for the CBI to do. Shalini Singh, let me come to a somewhat different issue. You have written several articles in The Hindu which suggest that there is a case for inquiring into Mr. Chidambaram. For the benefit of those who don't read The Hindu and haven't read your articles, briefly explain to me, what is this case?
It's a very simple point that one is making. Basically, the cabinet decision of 2003 and the transaction of business rules mandate that there must be concurrence with the finance minister. Cabinet decision specifically talks about DOT and finance ministry, and transaction of business rules say that if two ministers don't agree, if any two ministers, the finance minister and any other minister, A, they have to agree, B, if they don't agree, they have to go to the cabinet. So in two cases, in 2006 when Mr. Maran allocated spectrum at 2001 rates, and in
Simplify
Mr.
this,
Raja's
otherwise the
case.
audience will get lost in the details you're giving. What is the actual point you're making
There are two
where
charges.
Mr. Chidambaram can
there
be
are
inquired
two
into?
scams, the 2G scam under Mr. Raja and the allotment of spectrum under Mr. Maran. So Mr. Chidambaram is facing inquiries on both counts in Parliament and in the courts. So all I'm trying to say is he selectively kept quiet, he did not protest. He told the Hindu after our articles that I did protest.
I'm stopping you because you're going into details where people will be completely lost. You're saying that there are issues to do with pricing in particular.
Which he's responsible.
Which he's responsible for.
He did nothing.
And you're suggesting that his switch, if such a switch did happen, from an initial preference for auction to accepting 2001 pricing is where he can be inquired into on the grounds that he has conferred a pecuniary advantage on licensees. Is that in a nutshell what you're saying?
There is a constitutional provision which binds him, which obligates him to protest and to bring it to the notice of the cabinet, which he failed to do.
Mr. Tulsi, you followed this case almost as closely as anyone else. Do you agree with Shalini Singh that there are grounds for inquiring into Mr. Chidambaram, or do you think that that would be both unfair and wrong?
No, it's completely unfair and wrong, and I say that what's the purpose of having a group of ministers? The purpose of a group of ministers is it itself recognizes that there is a difference of opinion between two ministries. Now one of them has got to agree with the other. The question is that the main premise of the cabinet note, which was sent to the cabinet decision in 2003, was that it will spur investment and growth. Now on that basis, for the purpose of investment and growth, if Mr. Chidambaram agrees with Mr. Raja, he is not committing a crime. He is merely agreeing to the main premises. In any case, now the matter is before the Supreme Court as a result of a presidential reference. Auction can't be the route for every national asset, and the Supreme Court will debate that.
Can I stop you and clarify? You're saying that the mere fact that Mr. Chidambaram, as is alleged, and I underline the word alleged, changed his position in favor of auction and agreed with Mr. Raja on 2001 pricing doesn't suggest that he is in breach of the Prevention of Corruption Act section 13(1) in particular. It simply suggests that he accepted there was another logic and justification and therefore agreed on that basis, and that logic was it would spur growth, it would increase tele-density. Is that in a nutshell what you're saying? Very quickly.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Because that's precisely the objective, and that objective has been achieved.
Okay.
The telecom revolution has been one of the greatest revolutions of India.
All right, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to take a break, and when I come back, I'm going to ask an even deeper, more fundamental, and some would say more provocative question. Does the finger point higher? And if higher, how much higher? All the way to the top? Join me after the break and find out. Welcome back to The Last Word. We're discussing the 2G scam. Shalini Singh, let's come to an issue that many are speculating about. Does the fact that the correspondence between A. Raja and the PM shows that the PM was made aware that Raja was going to A. advance the cut-off date, that B. Raja was going to implement first come first serve, not on the basis of date of application, but on the basis of compliance with letter of intent, and C. that they discussed the price issue even though Raja ignored the advice the Prime Minister had given him. Does all of that suggest that Raja is exonerated, or does it suggest something very different, that the PM is perhaps implicated? Which does it suggest?
It suggests that there is this aspect of collective cabinet responsibility which has been overlooked. All the 7 illegalities committed by Raja, which became the reason for the Supreme Court to cancel 122 licenses, all those, 4 of those, Raja wrote to the PM and informed him of those. 2 of them he informed the Finance Ministry. So both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister not only knew, but they actually allowed it to happen.
So in other words, they are clearly implicated by this.
Well, there is a question. We have, it's not my job to judge. It is my job to place the facts and to ask questions.
Quite
so
right.
what does this tell you about collective cabinet responsibility?
More importantly, it tells us that there are questions to ask of the PM and the then FM. Is that right?
That's right.
Mr. Tulsi, once again, as someone who's followed this very closely and someone who's in earlier shows with me specifically discussed the level of questioning that the PM should be put to, do you agree with Shalini or do you disagree with Shalini?
No, I do not agree with Shalini that there is any illegality. Merely because the government wants to spur growth and investment and does not want to have any obstacle in the way of having the largest amount of tele-density in the country, and that's what actually resulted in the greatest revolutions that has taken place. Prime Minister was fully committed to this objective, and the Prime Minister did want that this objective should be achieved, which also has been achieved. I don't think there is any illegality in merely following a policy that you should make it available to every Indian, howsoever poor.
I understand.
A crime.
I understand. So you're giving me the same answer with regard to whether the PM should be questioned as you gave earlier with regard to the question whether the then Finance Minister P. Chidambaram should be questioned. In both cases you say the explanation for doing what they did or not acting as some say they should have is that they were advancing tele-density, and that did happen. Let me put this to you, Mr. Subramanian. What do you make specifically of the note in the Prime Minister's office files dated, I believe, the 22nd of January 2008, where it says the PM wants to be kept at arm's length? Do you believe this is incriminating as the opposition in Parliament has suggested, or do you accept the argument put up by Montek Singh Ahluwalia that this simply suggests that the PM didn't want to tread on ministerial prerogatives?
Well, first of all, let me tell you something about cabinet collective responsibility since I've been a cabinet minister. When a cabinet passes a resolution delegating authority to some ministers, its responsibility ends. In this particular case, on 31st October 2003, the cabinet had delegated the finance minister and the telecom minister to decide. So after that, there is no question of cabinet responsibility. There is, of course, a question that if the Prime Minister knew a big loss is going to take place, should he have intervened or not? And of course, when you have delegated responsibility to the finance minister and a huge loss is taking place, then he had every responsibility, and not doing so is a criminal offence, to have stopped it. Now I come to the question of Mr. Tulsi, talking about this policy, cheap tariffs and all that. First of all, let me tell you that all policies you have to examine alternatives, and then having rejected the inferior alternatives, you select the best.
Okay.
Then no court can intervene. Here there was nothing of that kind, number one. Number two, after getting the license, they went and sold it in the market.
But that's a different...
So there was a private auction.
Okay, but very quickly...
There was no government auction.
I understand, but once again, I don't want the audience to be blinded with details that they're not familiar with. Very quickly, are you suggesting... Are you therefore suggesting that there are grounds to question the Prime Minister and that it would be right and proper to do so? Very quickly.
No, not the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister.
Not the Prime Minister, but the Finance Minister. Mr. Memon, let me pursue that like this with you. Is there a case to suggest, as Shalini Singh was pointing out a moment ago, and as seemed to be the case when Mr. Subramanian Swamy began his answer, not when he ended it, but when he began, is there a case to suggest that the PM had reason to be suspicious of Mr. Raja, but did not inquire further, and therefore did not effectively monitor Raja?
No, while answering this, Karan, let me compliment you for narrowing down that proposition to one simple question, that whether the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister be found fault with, or Raja be exonerated. These are two alternatives. Now, we are in a position today, Mr. Subramanian Swamy, the severest critic, also says that Prime Minister is not to be faulted. Mr. Tulsi also toes the same line. About FM, there is both ways argument. But if both of them are not to be faulted, then necessarily Raja must be exonerated. That's what I believe.
This is very interesting. If you don't want to implicate the then FM and the Prime Minister, logic must extend the other way and exonerate Raja.
Absolutely.
May I say one thing? May I say one thing?
In a nutshell, yes.
Yeah, in a nutshell, I think the Prime Minister certainly should be a witness in the trial, and he should tell the court which is that authority which made him keep quiet.
All right. Now, I knew Mr. Swamy, given a chance, you'd somehow find a way of bringing Sonia Gandhi in. You can't resist doing so, and you're smiling as you do it. I'll remind the audience that you do claim to have been a very good friend of Rajiv Gandhi. I wonder what he thinks of your tactics.
Yes. Not claim, he himself said so.
All right, I'll let you have the last word. My thanks to Subramanian Swamy, Shalini Singh, KTS Tulsi and Majid Memon for joining me. This has been a complicated show to follow, but I hope it's been one that you've been able to understand the gist of. See you tomorrow, same channel, same time. Till then, goodbye, good night.